He told everyone I ruined his life, and maybe he's right. Maybe I did. But before you judge me, understand this, I warned him. I begged him. And when he broke into my apartment holding the only thing I ever loved, I realized something horrifying: some people don't stop until you make them. My name is Owen, and according to the calendar, I turned 18 a few months ago. At least, I was supposed to. But the truth? It never really felt like I crossed that line into adulthood, because my parents made sure that the moment I'd been dreaming about, my first real taste of freedom, never actually belonged to me. I grew up in a house where the universe didn't revolve around the sun. No, it revolved around my older brother, Caleb. He was only 2 years ahead of me, but you'd think he descended from the stars themselves the way everyone talked about him. The chosen one. The prodigy. The future doctor who would change the world one patient at a time. My mom could be talking about the weather and somehow, within 15 seconds, she'd turn the conversation into, "Did you know Caleb stayed after class once to help his biology teacher? He's so compassionate." She said it like she wanted applause. My dad? Same thing. Caleb breathed and the man looked ready to frame the air he exhaled. And then there was me. The quiet kid. The one who liked drawing in sketchbooks, reading thick fantasy novels, and saving up for art supplies the way other kids saved for game consoles. I didn't mind being low-key. Not at first. But after years of watching them treat Caleb like the family trophy and me like the packing peanuts the trophy came in, yeah, it started to burn. When Caleb earned an A, we went out for steak. When I earned an A, I got a pat on the shoulder and, "Good job, buddy," before they went right back to discussing his future like I wasn't sitting there breathing the same air. I kept telling myself, it's fine. Not every kid gets the spotlight. But it's hard to ignore the shadows when you live in them. At 16, I spent months working evenings at a tiny grocery store, stacking cans until my wrists went numb. I saved every single dollar until I finally bought a used guitar. It wasn't fancy, old wood, a couple scratches, but to me it was a dream I could hold. I showed my mom, practically vibrating with excitement, waiting for something, anything, encouraging. She barely glanced at it before saying, "That's nice, but you should focus on something practical. Like your brother." There it was. The sentence. The one that carved itself into my ribs and stayed there, like your brother. I heard it in my sleep. I heard it every single time I tried to imagine a future that belonged to me. Still, I behaved. I kept working. I never caused trouble. I kept imagining that turning 18 would change everything. That maybe, just maybe, they'd have to see me differently. I even planned my own small birthday dinner at my favorite diner. Nothing over the top, just friends and burgers and a milkshake with extra whipped cream. But 2 days before my birthday, I saw the look. My mom only made that face right before she said something that would sting. We were in the living room. Caleb was stretched across the couch, scrolling through his phone like a prince lounging in his castle. "Owen," she began. "We've been thinking, maybe it's best if you don't do a big celebration this year." I blinked. "A big celebration? Mom, it's literally dinner. I'm paying for it myself." She sighed like I had just suggested we host a party on Mars. "It's not about the money. It's just, your brother's been feeling a little down. He didn't get into his first-choice medical school, and we don't want to make him feel worse by making a big deal about your birthday right now." I laughed, genuinely thinking I was being pranked. "You're canceling my 18th birthday because Caleb didn't get into college?" My dad lowered his newspaper, giving me that fatherly disappointment look he reserved exclusively for when I dared to want something. "Watch your tone. Your brother is going through a hard time. You can celebrate later." Celebrate later. As if adulthood was a rain check. As if turning 18 was a coat I could just try on again next season. Caleb never looked up, but I saw the smirk twitch at the corner of his mouth. He heard everything. That night, I lay in bed replaying years, of being pushed aside. Birthdays where he got a bike and I got socks. Christmas mornings where he got a laptop and I got a "you'll grow into it" sweater. And now even the one birthday I had dared to hope for was slipping out of my hands. The next morning, I tried again. I shouldn't have had to fight for my own birthday, but there I was. "It's not fair to cancel now. I already paid for the reservation," I said. My mom's voice sharpened like a knife. "Life isn't always fair. You should be more understanding. Caleb is your brother. Don't you care about how he feels?" And the part that hurt was, I did. I always had. But caring about him never meant he cared about me. I left the house for a walk, shoving my hands into my jacket pockets. The sky was gray, a cold February wind stinging my cheeks. It felt like the world itself was mourning something with me, something small but deeply important. When I came home, my mom was on the phone telling Aunt Linda how mature I was for agreeing to cancel. Caleb was in the kitchen eating pancakes drenched in syrup. He looked up and grinned. "Guess I'm still the favorite," he said. I didn't say a word. I turned around, went to my room, and closed the door. Not slammed it, just closed it. Quiet things can be loud too. And something shifted in me. A door inside my chest clicked unlocked. I realized they weren't suddenly going to wake up and appreciate me. I could wait forever, and nothing would change. So, I made a plan. Not revenge. Not yet. Just escape. I pulled out my backpack and packed the essentials. Clothes. My notebook. The guitar pick I always kept in my wallet. I took the $1,200 I had scraped together over the years. The next day, I acted like everything was normal. I laughed at the dinner table. I nodded along to Caleb's stories. And then, when the clock struck midnight, my birthday, I quietly walked out the front door. The cold air slapped me awake, and for the first time in my life, it felt like my air. I stopped at the end of the driveway and looked back at that house, the one that never felt like home, and I thought, This is the last time they take something from me. I found a cheap room to rent near the community college. I worked extra shifts. I saved. I studied music online. I kept practicing guitar until the strings bit into my fingers. And slowly, I built a life. No guilt. No comparisons. No Caleb. Months passed. I moved into a tiny apartment, peeling paint, squeaky pipes, always smelled like someone was cooking rice at 3 a.m., but it was mine. I started a small YouTube channel for my music. Nothing huge, but people listened. People cared. For the first time, I wasn't a shadow. Then, almost a year later, a text appeared. "Mom, can we talk?" I ignored it. Then another. "Dad, your brother's been having a hard time. Maybe you could help him out since you're doing so well." So well? How did they even know? That's when I found out Caleb had discovered my Instagram. My apartment. My guitar. My music channel. The support. The comments. The little successes they never believed I could have. And for someone who spent his entire life being the golden boy, seeing the quiet kid thriving without him must have felt unbearable. Because the next thing I knew, Caleb was standing at my door. And that is where everything really started to unravel. I will never forget the sound of that knock. It wasn't polite, or curious, or hesitant in the way someone might knock when they're unsure if they should be there. No. It was 3 sharp, impatient taps, the kind of knock that tells you, I'm not asking. I'm announcing. My stomach sank before I even opened the door. Somehow, my body knew. And when I turned the knob, there he was, Caleb. Hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, chin lifted like he was trying to look taller than the doorway itself. That familiar smirk, God, that smirk, curled onto his face the same way it always did when he wanted to remind me that he thought he was better. He didn't say hello. Didn't ask if he could come in. He didn't even really look at me. His eyes slid right past my shoulder, scanning my little apartment like it was a crime scene. "So," he said after a beat, voice dripping with judgment, "this is where you've been hiding." Hiding. That was his word for it. Not living on my own, not rebuilding my life, not breathing air that wasn't filtered through our parents' expectations. No, in his mind, I was just a runaway scared kid playing pretend. I almost closed the door right then, but something stopped me. Maybe curiosity. Maybe leftover guilt. Maybe I wanted, just once, to hear something honest come out of his mouth. "You want to come in?" I asked. I didn't bother trying to sound warm. He shrugged. "Sure." And the moment he stepped over the threshold, I regretted letting him in. His eyes moved over everything, the mismatched thrift store couch, the tiny secondhand kitchen table, the chipped mug in the sink. Then he saw my guitar leaning against the window and his smirk widened like I'd confirmed some joke he had already told himself. "Not bad," he said, brushing his hand across the tabletop like he was checking it for dust. "Kind of small, though." "It's mine," I replied, more to remind myself than him. He let out a short laugh. "Right. Independent Owen. I told Mom you'd come crawling back after a month." I swallowed the urge to throw him out and instead asked, "Why are you here, Caleb?" The fake grin slipped, replaced by a tone I recognized from childhood, condescending, self-righteous, heavy with imagined authority. "Mom and Dad are worried about you," he said. "You just left. No note, no phone call, nothing. You know how selfish that was?" That word, selfish, hit me like ice water. "Selfish?" I repeated. "You mean like when my 18th birthday got cancelled because you were upset about a college rejection?" His head jerked up, eyes narrowing. He wasn't expecting me to talk back. "It wasn't like that," he muttered. "Oh, it was exactly like that," I said. "You didn't say a single word while they took the one day that was supposed to be mine and handed it to you, again." He blinked, then shrugged, tone dismissive, casual, cruel. "Not my fault they care about me more. You can't really blame me for being the favorite." I felt something in me go quiet. Not a peaceful quiet, more like that eerie calm right before an explosion. "So that's why you came," I said softly. "To make sure I remember where I belong, right? In your shadow." He grinned. "You sound jealous." That did it. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped aside. "You should go." For a split second, I thought he might push, argue, try to force his way back into my life the same way he always did. Instead, he flashed that same smile that had followed me through childhood like a curse. "Fine," he said. "But don't be shocked when Mom calls. She misses you." I didn't respond. I just closed the door behind him and stood there, hands trembling, not with fear, but with anger so sharp it made my teeth clench. I told myself that was the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, I came home from a long shift, exhausted and ready to collapse, when I saw a familiar car parked outside my building. My mom stood leaning against it, clutching a paper bag like she was holding a peace offering in a war she didn't believe she started. "Owen," she called, her voice breaking into relief when she saw me. Finally. I stopped several feet away. "Mom, how did you even find this place?" "Caleb told me," she answered casually, like sharing my address with people I didn't trust was completely normal. "Don't be like that. We just wanted to see you." I was too tired to fight, so I unlocked the door and let her follow me in. She walked around my apartment, slower than Caleb had, but still with that same silent comparison playing behind her eyes. "You shouldn't be living like this," she said, setting the paper bag on my counter. "This place is so plain." "It's what I can afford," I replied. She started unpacking food containers, lasagna, chicken parmesan, chocolate pie. Dishes that filled our house with celebration. But those celebrations were never mine. "These are Caleb's favorites," I said quietly. She paused, confused. "Really? I thought everyone loved my lasagna." I didn't bother explaining that I had told her a dozen times I didn't like it. Why would she remember? That kind of detail only mattered when it belonged to Caleb. We sat at the small table, and she began talking about Dad's stress, about Caleb's second college rejection, about how hard things had been for them. Minutes passed. Then an hour. And not once did the words, "How are you?" leave her mouth. When she finally made a comment about my life, it was wrapped in an insult so soft she probably thought it was loving. "You seem happy. I honestly didn't think you'd last this long on your own. You were always so sensitive." I laughed under my breath. "You mean I didn't let you walk all over me?" Her face hardened. "Don't start, Owen. We're trying to fix things." And maybe, foolishly, for half a second, I wanted to believe that. Until she said, "Your brother might move in with you for a little while." My body froze. "What?" "He needs a fresh start," she continued, like she was describing the weather. "And you've clearly managed to do that for yourself. I thought maybe you could help him. Set an example." I stood so fast my chair scraped across the floor. "You can't be serious." "Owen," she said sharply, "he's your brother. Families help each other." I looked around at the apartment I had built with my own hands and my own money and said, quietly but firmly, "No. I helped myself. You gave Caleb everything and expected me to survive on the leftovers." Her mouth snapped shut. She grabbed her purse, called me ungrateful, and walked out without looking back. For weeks, the silence felt like relief. I kept working, kept studying, kept making music. My YouTube channel grew, slow, steady, real. People listened. People cared. Then my dad called. "Owen," he said, voice stiff, "your mother is worried. You shouldn't have spoken to her that way." "I'm not letting Caleb move in with me," I replied. "Well, he needs somewhere to stay," Dad said, as if it were obvious. "He's family." "So am I whispered. "We have loved you," he insisted. "Maybe in theory," I said, and hung up. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. But life has a way of testing the boundaries you swore you'd hold. Because a few days later, there was another knock at my door. And when I looked through the peephole, Caleb was back. When the knock came, I knew, something was off. It wasn't Caleb's old territorial rhythm, the 3 taps of entitlement. This time, the sound lingered. Heavy. Purposeful. Like whoever was on the other side had already decided my answer didn't matter. I pulled open the door, and there he was again. But this time? He had a suitcase. Caleb slid it over the threshold like he already lived there. "Don't freak out," he said, dropping the handle like this was some casual sleepover. "Mom said you'd let me crash here." I just stared at him, stunned that someone could be that confident in their own delusions. "No," I said. "Absolutely not." He ran a hand through his hair, trying for that poor me performance he'd perfected over the years. "Come on, man. Just a couple weeks. My roommate kicked me out, and you've got the space." "I have 1 bedroom," I snapped. "And you can afford your own place? You have a job." He hesitated. His face tightened. And then, with no shame whatsoever, "Yeah, about that. I quit." Of course he did. Caleb treated responsibility like an optional elective in a class he never planned to attend. I folded my arms. "You're not staying here." He rolled his eyes. "Wow. So you really think you're better than everyone now? Big man with a YouTube channel and your little apartment." That hit. Not because it was true, but because it was exactly how my family always saw me, someone playing pretend. "Get out," I said quietly, because I knew if I raised my voice, he would twist it into drama he could use. He didn't budge. "You know," he said, voice dripping with venom, "Mom's right. You've changed. You used to be nice." I stared at him, forcing myself to stay calm, even though my pulse hammered through my jaw. "And you," I said, "used to be tolerable." That wiped the smirk off his face. His eyes hardened, sharp and cold. "You're going to regret this." He grabbed his suitcase, but before leaving, he paused, pulled out his phone, and took a picture of my apartment. Like evidence. Like ammunition. I didn't know what for. Not yet. But a few days later, my phone buzzed with a message from my aunt. "Are you okay? Your mother said you're struggling and refusing help. Don't be too proud, sweetheart." It clicked. The picture. The pity. The whisper campaign. Caleb hadn't just walked out. He'd gone home and spun a story. I could practically hear my parents' voices. "Owen isn't doing well. He's stubborn. He's too proud to come back where he belongs." Then came the texts. The calls. The "we're praying for you" messages from relatives who never called unless there was gossip to chew on. Humiliation in slow motion. So I did the only thing that made sense. I worked harder. I poured everything into the music, late nights recording, editing, posting. And it paid off. Views went up. Subscribers climbed. I got a small sponsorship, nothing huge, but something real, something mine. And the better I did, the more frantic the messages became. Then one evening, finishing a recording session, I heard another knock. I almost didn't open it. I should have listened to that instinct. Because standing outside my apartment were all 3 of them. My mother, shoulders tight and breath shallow. My father, jaw set like a judge ready to deliver a sentence. And Caleb, suitcase free this time, because he didn't need one. He had them. I stepped aside. Not because they deserved to come in, just because I was too tired to argue on the doorstep. They sat down. My mom clutching her purse. My dad planting his elbows on his knees. Caleb lounging like he owned the place. Dad opened with, "We need to talk about this attitude of yours." I laughed once. "What attitude?" Mom leaned forward. "You've been distant. Disrespectful. We've tried to help you, but you keep pushing us away." I blinked. "Help me? You canceled my 18th birthday. You tried to move Caleb into my apartment. And now I'm the problem?" Caleb crossed his arms, leaning way back, like he was settling into his throne. You really love playing the victim, huh? That was the moment something inside me cracked. The quiet part of me, the one that swallowed feelings for years, stepped aside and let the truth speak for once. Maybe I am done being quiet, I said. And I was ready. Ready to say everything I had kept trapped behind my ribs. But then Caleb leaned forward, smirk returning like a stain, and said, "You think you've got it all figured out, don't you? Your little apartment, your little YouTube channel, your little independence. You really think that makes you better than us?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, I understood that this wasn't an apology, a reunion, or even a conversation. It was a power grab. Mom's voice trembled, not with sadness, but with control glittering beneath it. "We think it's time you come home." My heart stilled. "What?" Dad nodded. "This went on long enough. Caleb needs support. We need our family back together." There it was again. Caleb needs. It was always Caleb needs. Then, the twist. "We helped you when you left," Dad said. "That money you had saved? It wasn't all yours." My blood ran cold. Mom added gently, like poison wrapped in velvet, "We transferred money into your account, sweetheart. It was for you, but it's technically still ours." And I realized. This wasn't a visit. It was a claim of ownership. "So what?" I whispered. "You think that gives you the right to run my life?" Dad's eyes hardened. "It gives us the right to expect respect." Caleb grinned. "Sounds like someone owes the family a thank you." My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "Get out." Mom gasped. Dad stood. Caleb scoffed. And minutes later, the door slammed, leaving the air vibrating from everything unsaid. I thought that was the end. But I should have known better. A few days passed, quiet, heavy, uneasy. Then something happened. Something I never expected. Something they did, that changed everything. And it started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. I woke up one morning to what I thought was the best notification storm of my life. My phone was buzzing nonstop, messages, mentions, tags, comments. My heart started racing in that way it does when a dream might finally be coming true. I fumbled for my phone, still half asleep, thinking, did a song finally blow up? Did someone big share my channel? Did I actually make it? But then I saw it. A video title spreading across every platform like wildfire. The truth about Owen, the liar behind the music. My entire body went cold. I clicked it, even though every part of me already knew I shouldn't. But curiosity is cruel like that. And from the moment the video started playing, I didn't breathe. It was a 15-minute takedown posted by an account created less than 24 hours earlier. But the voice? Even distorted, I knew it the way you know a scar on your own skin. Caleb. Only he could drip smugness between syllables like it was a second language. He showed screenshots of my Instagram, my analytics, clips from my live streams, twisting every piece of my work into some bizarre conspiracy. He claimed I faked my success, that I'd stolen money from our parents, that I was building a following by pretending to be broke. At one point, he said, "Funny how Owen acts like a self-made man when mommy and daddy paid for everything." Guess being the family embarrassment finally paid off. It was like watching someone burn down your house and commentate on the flames like they were hosting a cooking show. I tried reporting it, but it was already everywhere, Reddit threads, Facebook groups, even strangers stitching it on TikTok. My DMs were overflowing. Some people asked if it was true. Others called me a fraud. Others laughed at me like this was entertainment. My chest started tightening. I dialed my parents. Mom answered on the third ring. "Did you know about this?" I asked, my voice already cracking. Pause. "Owen," she said carefully, "you need to calm down." My hand shook. "You knew. You knew, didn't you?" She exhaled slowly. "Your brother was just trying to share his side. People deserve to know what actually happened." "What actually?" I almost choked. "Your version? Where I'm the villain because I wanted a normal birthday. Because I moved out when you treated me like a placeholder for Caleb's spotlight?" Then Dad's voice cut in from somewhere near the phone. "You brought this on yourself. You abandoned your family. We had no choice. No choice but to let my brother destroy my name?" I hung up before their voices poisoned me any further. That night, I sat alone in my dark apartment, watching my laptop screen glow like an open wound. The video hit 20,000 views. The comment section was a war zone, half defending me, half ripping me apart like they personally knew the version of me Caleb invented. Then I saw it. A comment from Caleb's real account. "Guess success runs in the family. Some of us just earn it honestly." I slammed the laptop shut so hard it echoed in my chest. For the first time in my life, my anger wasn't a spark, it was a star collapsing into a black hole. They didn't just ruin a birthday. They didn't just ignore me growing up. They weren't content with pushing me out of their lives. They wanted to erase everything I had built. And then came the text. "Caleb, hey bro, sorry about the video. I'll take it down if you apologize to mom." I stared at it for what felt like forever. "Me, you posted lies about me online." "Caleb, not lies. Just perspective." "Me, you humiliated me in front of thousands." "Caleb, then fix it. Say sorry. Come home." I turned off my phone. I didn't throw it, didn't scream. I just shut it off like closing a casket. And I thought, they will never stop taking. And I was right. Because 2 days later, I came home from work and saw my apartment door slightly open. The lock scratched. The frame dented. I stepped inside. And my world just dropped. Drawers ripped out, contents everywhere. Papers scattered. Clothes tossed around like someone wanted chaos, not just theft. And the worst part. The part that made my chest cave in. My guitar was gone. The guitar I worked for. Slept through exhaustion for. The first thing I ever bought that was mine. It wasn't just stolen. It was violated. Then I saw it. A small photograph sitting on my counter. Me and Caleb as kids, forced smiles, matching sweaters. A picture I hadn't seen since I left home. I hadn't brought it with me. Someone planted it. My hands went numb. I called the police. They came, took statements, shrugged in that apologetic, exhausted way officers do when they know justice won't follow. After they left, the silence in my apartment felt haunted. Later, while cleaning, I found an envelope jammed behind my receipts in a drawer. Inside, a note in Caleb's handwriting. "You should have stayed humble, little bro. Maybe this will teach you." I crumpled it in my fist until it nearly tore. The next few days, I moved through life like a ghost. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. My boss, Rick, a kind older guy, looked at me one evening while stocking shelves and said, "You all right, kid? Don't let people wear you down. You're one of the good ones." I didn't know why that sentence hit so hard, but it did. Maybe because it was the first time in a long time someone spoke to me like I mattered. Meanwhile, my channel bled subscribers. Comments turned uglier. Brands stopped emailing back. I posted a short video denying everything, and that only fanned the flames. People didn't want truth. They wanted a villain. One night I sat on my balcony, coffee freezing in my hands, city noise drifting up like static. I realized how small my world had become. And strangely, that gave me clarity. If this was rock bottom, then there was only one direction left. Up. So I made changes. Quiet ones. I deleted every old social media account. Made a brand new YouTube channel under a different name. Started uploading with my backup guitar and an old mic that buzzed like a dying bee. No expectations. Just creation. I got a second job at a cafe. Morning shifts there, evening shifts stocking groceries. Exhausting, but honest. And then, silence. No calls. No texts. No chaos. Which would have felt like peace, but something in my gut said otherwise. Silence wasn't them giving up. Silence was them planning. I could feel it, like a storm gathering behind a closed door. And I was right. Because a few weeks later, something happened that told me my family wasn't finished. Not even close to. I got home late that night, long after we closed the cafe. It was one of those shifts where the espresso machines felt louder than usual and the lights a little too bright. I just wanted silence, a shower, and sleep. But when I stepped up to my apartment door, something stopped me cold. A piece of paper was taped right across it. No envelope. No attempt at subtlety. Just a single sheet, folded once, like someone had written it in a hurry and didn't even respect me enough to hide the words. I peeled it off, unfolded it, and there it was, ink pressed deep into the page, letters sharp and controlled. "We want to make things right. Family meeting tomorrow. 6 p.m. Don't ignore us again." No signature, but I didn't need one. My father's handwriting might as well have been carved into my memory. I crushed the note in my fist and threw it straight into the trash under the kitchen sink, but it wouldn't stop echoing in my head. Make things right. What did that even mean in our family's dictionary? In their world, making things right usually translated to, Owen apologizes. Owen forgives. Owen forgets. We move on. Caleb stays perfect. Still, some small, stubborn piece of me, a piece I thought I'd killed months ago, wondered if maybe, somehow, something had changed. Maybe Caleb had confessed. Maybe my parents had finally replayed all the moments they dismissed me and realized how wrong it was. Maybe they finally wanted me, not the version of me that bent around Caleb's feelings, but me. The next day, around 5:45 p.m., I was pacing the length of my apartment, palms sweating, heart pounding like it was trying to smash its way out of my chest. By 5:50, I told myself I was going. By 5:55, I told myself I wasn't. And by 6 o'clock exactly, I stayed right where I was, staring at the wall, refusing to walk back into a room where my existence came second to Caleb's pride. At 7:12 p.m., my phone lit up. "Mom, we waited for you. This was your last chance to fix things." Then seconds later, "Dad, don't bother calling again. We're done." That was it. The end of years of loyalty and begging and trying to earn a place that should have been mine from the start. But I didn't break. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, thick and steady. Because in that moment, I realized something that should have hit me a long time ago. I don't need them, not anymore. Or at least, that's what I thought. But life has a twisted sense of timing. A few days later, an email arrived from the company that had sponsored my music channel. The one partnership I had left. They decided to cut ties with me after recent online concerns. Translation: Caleb's video had done its damage. Losing that income hurt. Not just financially, it hurt because it was another piece of my independence ripped away by the same hands that had been taking from me since before I even knew I was allowed to want things. I powered through anyway. Work, rent, cheap meals, sleep, repeat. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the empty space where my guitar used to sit and feel something hollow open inside my chest, but I kept going. Then, one evening as I was closing up the cafe, stacking chairs and wiping the counters with autopilot hands, Claire, the owner, walked out from the back carrying an envelope. "Someone dropped this off for you," she said, brows pinched. "Said he was your brother." My stomach turned to ice. I took the envelope and stepped outside into the cool air before opening it. Under the streetlights, I unfolded the note. Two things tumbled out. A piece of paper. A photograph. The note read, "You didn't show up." So I showed them the truth. And the photo? It was of me, sitting alone inside my apartment, staring at my laptop weeks ago, unaware, unguarded. The picture was taken through my window. He had been watching me. The world tilted a little. My ears rang. I couldn't go back inside. I couldn't be alone in that space, not while knowing he'd been that close without me knowing. So I stayed at the cafe until dawn, sipping stale coffee, staring at that picture like it might open its mouth and explain itself. It didn't. But something inside me shifted. My brother wasn't just jealous. He wasn't just cruel. He was obsessed. He wanted me scared. He wanted me caged. He wanted me to break so completely that I'd come crawling back. But not this time. If this was rock bottom, then I'd found solid ground beneath it. And from there, I could push back? Maybe I had been the quiet one. Maybe I had let them believe I was harmless. Maybe they forgot that sometimes the quiet ones are the ones paying the closest attention. And if Caleb thought he could take everything from me without consequences, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Because I wasn't done. Not anymore. And the next move? It would be mine. When you finally crash into rock bottom, there's a strange sort of freedom waiting there that no one ever warns you about. It's like the world stops expecting anything from you, and all the noise that used to drown your thoughts just shuts off. You stop caring about who's judging you, because what more can they take? What part of you is left for them to break? That's where I was, curled up in the corner booth of the cafe at sunrise, watching strangers shuffle past the fogged windows with their lattes and early morning purpose. And it hit me, quietly. For the first time in my entire life, I didn't know anyone a single explanation. Not my parents. Not Caleb. No one. Hours later, when the sky finally brightened, I went back to my apartment with my pulse thudding in my ears. I unlocked the door slowly, bracing myself for another wrecked room, another mocking note, another violation. But nothing moved. The apartment sat still, stale coffee scent, detergent in the air, quiet as stone. I checked every corner anyway. When I was sure I was alone, I locked the door behind me and sat down at my desk. At first, I could only spill out words, not songs, just jagged thoughts, sentences soaked in betrayal and invisibility. Then the lines found a rhythm, then the rhythm found a melody, and before I knew it, my old secondhand guitar was in my hands, the cheap metal frets singing under my fingertips. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. For weeks, maybe months, time felt strange, endless, stretched thin by my obsession with creating something real out of all that pain. I stopped thinking about sponsors, or views, or proving anything to anyone. I didn't even use my name this time. I became someone new. Noah West. At first, the channel was a quiet corner of the internet, just a few hundred views, a comment here and there. Something about this hurts. In a good way. This feels like you bled onto the strings. Those small words were enough. Enough to keep me breathing. Enough to keep me playing. Then everything changed. A small music page discovered my song Glass Houses and shared it. Within a week, it hit 100,000 views. Then 300,000. Then more. Messages poured in from around the world. A girl from Canada wrote, "I played this on repeat after my family cut me off. Your voice made me feel seen. Thank you." I didn't reply, but I held onto the message like a lifeline. By month 3, indie producers were reaching out. Someone wanted to license my music for a Netflix background track. It wasn't huge money, not yet, but it was stability, rent paid without panic. I quit the grocery store. Claire, the cafe owner, insisted I stay part-time. "Everyone needs a safe place to land," she said. She was right. One day, after I finished my shift, she sat across from me and studied my face the way someone looks at a puzzle piece that finally fits. "You're lighter," she said. "People can hear you now, even when you're not shouting." I didn't know how true that was until 2 weeks later, when an email hit my inbox. "Saw your video. Proud of you. Aunt Linda." She had found me, recognized my voice behind the alias. She told me she always believed I'd carve my own path. For the first time, a part of my past didn't feel like a wound. But success has gravity. And sometimes, it drags ghosts back to your door. A month after Glass Houses blew up, I got a message on Instagram from a blank profile. "Nice song. Shame your parents don't know it's you." I didn't need a name. Caleb had found me. Again. But this time, I didn't flinch. I didn't run. I didn't lose sleep. Because now I held something he couldn't twist or steal. Proof. Proof that I could exist without their permission. So I said nothing. I just kept building. And the channel kept growing, song by song, brick by brick, until one day I woke up and saw 500,000 subscribers. 500,000 people listening to my voice, and not one of them knew my parents' version of me. Then came the article. Claire summoned me into her office, grin stretching across her face, and handed me her phone. There it was, a headline spreading across music blogs. The anonymous voice behind Glass Houses revealed, "Meet Noah West." No real name mentioned, but the world was beginning to look in my direction. Record labels. Interview requests. Spotlight. A future. I should have celebrated. I wanted to. But something dark pulled in my gut, heavy and familiar. Because fame, even the softest kind, makes shadows move. That night, packing up my recording setup, my phone chimed. A text. No name attached. "Heard you're famous now. Guess mom and dad were wrong about you." No apology. No accountability. Just that poison pride. I didn't reply. I didn't block him. I left the message there, like a glass shard on purpose. Because I knew something now. When people like my parents and Caleb lose control, they don't disappear. They rewrite their approach. And I was right. Within weeks, they reached out again. "Mom, we saw you on TV. We're so proud of you. Maybe we could come to a show. Dad, you've really made something of yourself. Let's put the past behind us." The same people who shattered me, tried to ruin me, turned relatives against me, and laughed while I fell apart, now wanted a ticket to my success. Months ago, I might have let that hope trick me. But I had learned something crucial. Their love came with strings. Tangled, choking strings. Still, I didn't delete the messages. Not because I wanted them back, but because something in me finally recognized what I had. The upper hand. And I had a feeling I would need it. Because somewhere deep inside, I could feel it. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't answer them, not my parents, not Caleb. But I did something I should have done a long time ago. I started documenting everything. Every message. Every voicemail. Every comment from those anonymous troll accounts that somehow knew way too much about my life. I started taking screenshots, screen recordings, backing up files 3 different ways. And then I installed cameras, 2 of them. One pointed at the door. One angled toward the window where that photograph of me had been taken. If Caleb or my parents wanted to turn my life into a game again, then this time I'd be the one holding the rulebook. Meanwhile, my world was changing. February came, exactly 1 year from the night I walked away from that house and the version of myself that lived there. And on a cold, ordinary weekday, I got the email that rewrote everything. A label wanted to sign me. Not control me. Not own me. Just support the album I'd already started building with nothing but grief, a backup guitar, and my voice. I signed before doubt even had a chance to argue. Spring came, and with it, small shows around the city. Dark basements, neon-lit bars, makeshift stages in bookshop corners, nothing glamorous, nothing massive. But the rooms filled, and the voices that sang along knew my lyrics, my pain, my story, even if they didn't know my name. Every cheer was a victory. Every clap was a brick back in the foundation they had tried to shatter. And eventually, the money followed. Not superstardom, not luxury, but enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to clear my rent without panic. Enough to upgrade my recording setup and, finally, enough to buy a new guitar. When I held that instrument in my hands, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt vindicated. For years I'd been told I was delusional, irresponsible, unrealistic. Music isn't a job, Owen. Grow up, Owen. Be more like your brother. And there I was, making more off my waste of time than they had earned in 3 decades of playing perfect suburban family. I didn't make any public announcement. But news travels, especially when people want a piece of something they once spat on. One night, Aunt Linda called me. You didn't hear this from me, she whispered, but your parents, they've been bragging about your success to anyone who'll listen. Everyone at church thinks they supported you from the start. I let out a laugh that tasted bitter. Let them rewrite the story if it made them feel better. But the universe wasn't done showing me the truth. A few mornings later, an invitation arrived in the mail. No return address, just thick white cardstock and elegant handwriting. You are cordially invited to celebrate Caleb's graduation and new career opportunity. And at the bottom, in neat cursive, it would mean the world if you came. I stared at it, no anger at first, just a cold, amused disbelief. They wanted a celebratory photo. They wanted to parade both sons like matching trophies. They wanted proximity to the success they never wanted me to earn. But this time, everything was different. I wasn't walking in as a shadow. I had something I'd never had before. Leverage. I called Aunt Linda, not for permission, but for clarity. I told her everything, the video, the break-in, the picture taken through my window. There was a long silence, then she said, Owen, if you're going, you make sure that whatever truth comes out, it comes from you, not from them. That changed everything. I spent the next week preparing, not for a reunion, but for a reckoning. I bought hidden microphones and a pin camera, small enough to look like nothing at all. I planned every possible version of the night, every angle they might try to use, every lie they might tell. The day arrived. Their house looked exactly as it had the night I left it, the manicured lawn, the soft porch lights, the windows glowing warm like a trap disguised as hospitality. But as I stood on that porch, I didn't feel 17 and powerless anymore. I felt like someone walking into a negotiation. Mom answered the door, smile too wide, too rehearsed. Owen. You came, she said, wrapping her arms around me as if hugs could erase the past. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, calm. Inside, the place buzzed with guests, neighbors, extended relatives, faces I hadn't seen in years and some I didn't recognize at all. Congratulations balloons floated in clusters. A banner stretched across the dining room wall. We're proud of you, Caleb. And there, in the photo collage, I saw it. That same childhood picture, the one I found in my ransacked apartment. My pulse kicked, but I kept my expression neutral. Then someone parted the crowd and there he was. Caleb. And the look on his face when he saw me, that half-second flicker of surprise, was almost worth everything. Well, look who decided to show up, he said loudly. The prodigal son returns. I smiled without warmth. Congratulations, Caleb. Looks like things worked out. He leaned in, low enough so only I could hear. Yeah. And I didn't have to cry on the internet to get here. A few people chuckled, not sure whether to laugh or wince. I just looked him in the eyes and said evenly, you're right. Some of us actually had to work without being handed everything. His jaw twitched. For the first time in our lives? He didn't know what to say. Dinner was long. Stiff. Calculated. I could feel eyes on me from every direction, people curious, people assessing, people waiting for a show. And they got one. Mom raised her glass partway through the meal. We're so proud of both our boys, she said sweetly. Caleb for his graduation, and Owen for, well, whatever it is he's doing with music. Polite laughter. Tight smiles. The kind of moment they always used to shrink me. Not tonight. Then Dad spoke, voice full of false casual warmth. We heard your music is doing well, he said. Maybe we can talk later about helping the family. Caleb has plans for a practice. Could use a partner. Partner. Code for funding. I stared at him, then at Caleb, who grinned like it was already decided. This is a big opportunity for you, Owen, Caleb said, voice smooth with arrogance. Good PR too. After that whole scandal. Aligning with me could really help fix your image. I blinked. Slowly. Once. Then I pulled out my phone, set it gently on the table, hit a button, and let my voice sound steady. You're right, Caleb. The internet doesn't forget. I looked directly at him. Which is exactly why I record everything now. The table went silent. And I lifted the phone just enough so everyone could see the small, blinking red light. Caleb's face drained. My parents froze. And I said, tonight, we're going to talk. And this time, the truth comes from me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't posture. I simply turned my phone so the screen faced Caleb and tapped play. A video filled the room with sound. Not a long clip, barely 60 seconds, but it didn't need to be. Every detail was unmistakable. Caleb. In my apartment. My stolen guitar in his hands. Laughing like the destruction of someone's life was a punchline. And then his voice, clear enough to cut glass. You should have stayed humble, little bro. Maybe this will teach you. The entire dinner table froze. Forks stopped midair. Conversations halted midword. Someone actually gasped. You could have heard a heartbeat drop. Caleb's face went blank, all color draining. Where did you, he stuttered. I set the phone down gently, like I wasn't holding a bomb. I installed security cameras after you broke in the first time, I said, steady, almost clinical. Maybe you forgot about those. My mother's silverware clattered against her plate. Caleb, she cried, voice pitched with disbelief. Tell me this is some kind of joke. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's edited, he spat. He's making it up. He's twisting things. But I was already reaching into my bag. I figured you might say that. I pulled out a folder and laid a document in the center of the table like a dealer placing down a winning card. A police report, date, time, burglary details, everything. I didn't press charges last time, I said. I thought protecting you was the right thing to do, even after you tried to ruin my career. But now, I looked directly at him. Now, I'm not so sure you deserve my protection. My father stared at me like I'd become a stranger. You recorded your own brother? I turned toward him slowly, disbelief curling in my chest. No, I said, voice low. He recorded me. He made a fake expose to destroy my reputation. He broke into my home, he stole from me, he stalked me. I let the words sink in, one at a time. All I did was make sure the truth didn't disappear. People at the table began murmuring, connecting dots they had ignored for years. I saw confusion, shock, anger, and none of it directed at me for once. Caleb looked like he was shrinking by the second, chest rising too fast, hands trembling under the table. You can't prove. Actually, I said, cutting through his sentence like a blade, I can. I tapped my phone again and opened a page, my attorney's portal, filled with documented timestamps, screenshots, audio backups. I hired a lawyer months ago. And he's also my manager. I looked around the table. We've been preparing a civil case. Defamation. Harassment. Property theft. The works. A ripple of gasps moved across the room. My mother's face crumpled. Caleb, she whispered, reaching for him, please tell me this isn't real. He stayed silent. And silence was the most honest thing he had ever given us. I leaned back, breathing evenly. Relax, I said. I'm not pressing charges. I let the pause stretch long enough for Caleb to lift his head with the smallest spark of hope, yet. Chairs creaked. Someone dropped a wine glass. Aunt Linda looked like she might start applauding. I rose slowly, sliding my chair back with a calm finality that didn't need volume to be powerful. I turned to my mother. You once told me I should try to be more like Caleb. I shook my head. Now you understand why that will never be a compliment. Then I faced the brother who had spent a lifetime needing me beneath him. For the first time, he couldn't look at me. I started walking toward the door, then paused with my hand on the frame and glanced back. Oh, I said lightly, before I forget. I'm releasing a new track next week. A few people looked up. It's called Family Business. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Thought you might appreciate the dedication. And then I walked out. No shouting. No tears. No looking back. The cold night air hit my face like a baptism, sharp and freeing. Behind me, the house buzzed with frantic whispers, shock, the unraveling of a narrative they'd clung to for years. For the first time, the weight wasn't on my shoulders. It was on theirs. I sat in my car for a long minute, staring at the place that once convinced me I was small. Then I turned the key, rolled down the window, and drove away with the kind of peace that doesn't need permission. That night, in my apartment lit by nothing but a desk lamp and a new guitar balanced on my knee, I finished the last verse of that song, not with anger, but something stronger. Closure. Because here's what nobody tells you. Sometimes revenge isn't fire. It isn't chaos. It isn't even justice. Sometimes revenge is simply becoming everything they said you'd never be, and letting them watch. People who try to destroy you expect noise, destruction, rage. But I didn't burn. I rebuilt. And this time? They had to witness it. And the fallout? It arrived faster than anyone expected. By the next morning, the family group chat, the one I had muted, abandoned, and sworn never to open again, turned into an absolute war zone. Messages stacked on top of each other faster than I could read them. Accusations. Defenses. Apologies. Threats. Long paragraphs from relatives who hadn't said my name in years suddenly pretending they had always been on my side. It was like I had tossed a single match into a room soaked in gasoline, and walked away before the explosion. I didn't even have to reply. They were dismantling themselves without me lifting a finger. The first personal message I received was from Aunt Linda. Aunt Linda, you did the right thing. They needed the truth. Don't let anyone guilt you for protecting yourself. I thanked her, but she didn't know the half of it, and I wasn't ready to tell her yet. Because the fallout from that dinner didn't stay contained to a dining room. Those little clips Caleb's friends recorded, just fragments, shaky phone footage, made their way onto a local gossip page. Nothing incriminating for me, just enough to show Caleb stammering, my mother crying, my father shouting about betrayal while relatives tried to calm them down. Within days, my family's pristine reputation, this perfect glass castle they'd curated for years, was spiderwebbed with cracks for the entire community to see. The golden family wasn't so golden anymore. 3 days later, my phone rang. Mom. I don't know why I answered. Maybe some part of me wanted to hear what excuse she'd try this time. Her voice came through small, frayed at the edges. Owen, you've humiliated us. I closed my eyes. Mom, I didn't humiliate you, I said calmly. I just stopped protecting you. She tried to switch into that soft, aching tone, the voice she always used when she wanted control dressed up as concern. Your brother is devastated. He won't leave his room. He barely eats. Good, I said before I could stop myself. Then quieter. Maybe he'll finally know what it feels like. She sniffed. We're family. We should be helping each other, not destroying each other. That almost made me laugh. Family? I repeated. We weren't a family. I was a mirror you held up to Caleb. I existed so you could say, look how much better he is. Silence stretched. Long, heavy. And then, barely above a whisper. We never meant for it to go this far. But it had. And there was no walking it back. I blocked her, not in anger anymore, but in peace. Like closing a door in a burning house and finally stepping into fresh air. The consequences kept unfolding. Caleb's so-called new career opportunity wasn't a guaranteed position like they bragged about, it was an internship. And once the organization reviewed the now reactivated police report and the evidence I was willing to provide, that offer vanished. The people who once toasted my brother's ambition began avoiding him. The same colleagues who praised my father at church events suddenly fell silent when he approached. Someone whispered to my aunt. I suppose the apple didn't fall far from the tree. For a family obsessed with reputation, with spotless surfaces and whiter-than-white lies, that kind of judgment is worse than any legal sentence. And Caleb, he fell hardest. One night I got a message from one of his old friends. Friend. Man, your brother's losing it. He keeps saying you ruined his life. Says you betrayed him. I didn't answer. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like a strange, quiet victory, not because I wanted him broken, but because for once, he was sitting in the consequences he built. Then, past midnight on a rainy Thursday, I heard a knock on my door. My chest locked for a moment. I checked the peephole. Caleb. Soaked through. Eyes red-rimmed. Clothes wrinkled like he hadn't slept in days. He looked nothing like the smirking, untouchable brother I remembered. Can I come in? He asked, voice barely holding itself together. I hesitated. Then I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, dripping rain onto the floor, and sat at my small kitchen table like he was afraid it might collapse beneath him. We said nothing. Only the rain filled the silence. Then, finally, he looked up at me. You destroyed me, he whispered. I leaned back against the counter. No, Caleb, I said quietly. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped letting you take me down with you. His jaw worked, his throat tightening. You think you're better than me now? No, I said. I just know who I am now. And I know the difference between love and control. He swallowed hard. His voice shook. They won't talk to me. Dad is furious. Mom cries every day. Aunt Linda won't return my calls. Everybody turned on me. That's what happens, I said gently, when you build your whole life on lies. Eventually, the truth stops knocking and kicks the door down. He put his head in his hands. I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted you to stop making me look bad. And there it was. The confession under all the noise. It was never that he wanted me gone. He wanted me small. I didn't make you look bad, I said. You did that. All I did was stop carrying it for you. He stood, walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, he murmured, I'm sorry. For all of it. I didn't answer. Not because I hated him, but because I finally understood. Forgiveness is not a debt I owe to anyone. He walked out into the rain and didn't look back. I never saw him again. A month later, Aunt Linda told me he'd left the state to start over somewhere no one knew his name. My parents sold the house and moved into something smaller. My father had a mild stroke. My mother spent her days caring for him, quieter than she had ever been. I didn't feel joy when I heard. I didn't feel triumph. Just a strange, solemn acceptance. The past had finally collapsed under its own weight. And me? My life kept moving. My music grew. My show sold out. My audience expanded. The boy who walked out of that house with $1,200 and a used guitar had become something none of them ever believed he could be. Not perfect. Not famous. Not invincible. Just free. Because here's the truth. They didn't break me. They sharpened me. And now, every note I play is proof I survived them. Meanwhile, my life didn't freeze in place like everyone expected it to. It kept moving, quietly, steadily, and in a direction none of them ever imagined for me. That spring, the project I had poured my lungs and bones into finally came out into the world. Glass Houses wasn't just an album, it was every sleepless night, every scar, every word I never got to say. The release wasn't explosive. No fireworks. No overnight fame. It landed softly. But sometimes soft things spread the farthest. Before long, reviews trickled in from bloggers, indie critics, and people who stumbled across my music at 3 a.m. They called it raw, haunting, a quiet masterpiece for anyone who's ever had to rebuild from nothing. The last track, simply titled 18, was the one that cut the deepest. I had written it like a letter to the boy I used to be, the one staring at a cancelled birthday dinner and a locked bedroom door, wondering why existing felt like an inconvenience to the people who were supposed to love him. The song didn't rage. It didn't accuse. It reflected. There's a line in the bridge where I sing, "I blew out candles alone. But the wish woke up with me. I didn't need a witness. To finally be free." Someone commented under the official video, "This doesn't sound like a grudge. It sounds like someone finally put down the weight they were carrying." They were right. When the first royalty payment cleared, I stared at the numbers for a long time, then donated a percentage to a youth shelter near the neighborhood I once ran from. For the kids who turned 18 with nowhere to go. For the ones told to grow up before they were ever held. It felt like giving a voice to the version of me who stood at the edge of a driveway with a backpack and no idea what came next. I didn't think about my family often anymore. When I did, it wasn't like reopening a wound. It was more like remembering a book I once read, one with pages torn out and sentences that never made sense until I stopped trying to fix them. Sometimes during live shows, I'd see someone in the crowd with that familiar, bruised look in their eyes, the look of someone who'd learned to make themselves small so others could stretch out their shadows. And when the lights dimmed and I reached the final verse of 18, I didn't just sing it for me anymore. I sang it for them. After one show, a girl, 17, maybe, waited until everyone else had gotten their merch signed. She held a crumpled piece of notebook paper with some of my lyrics written on it. Her voice shook when she said, "That line, about walking away to become real. It saved me." For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I told her the truth. If it saved you, then it did what it was meant to do. Later that night, I sat alone backstage, listening to the venue go quiet. It hit me that everything I survived, every silent dismissal, every locked emotional door, had turned into something that opened doors for other people. That was the real victory. Not the dinner scene. Not the evidence. Not the shattered reputation of the family who tried to shrink me. No. The real revenge was a life lived so honestly, so fully, that the people who once tried to break me couldn't reshape the story anymore. And then, finally, 1 year late, but perfectly timed, I celebrated my 18th birthday. For real this time. Just me. A handful of people who had earned the right to stay. A cake that leaned too far on one side because we baked it ourselves and didn't care. Too many candles, all lit. Someone asked what I wished for before I blew them out. I thought about it. And for the first time in my life, the answer was simple. Nothing, I said. I already got it. Because I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their version of love. I didn't need permission to exist. I was free. And freedom, after a lifetime of being told to stay quiet, was the sweetest, loudest revenge I could have ever imagined. And I chose to spend it singing.